Hello and welcome to our daily devotion where we share this one thing from our Revised Common Lectionary for Wednesday, June the 17th. My name is Pam Maston. I'm one of the associate pastors here at First Presbyterian Church of Fort Lauderdale, and thank you for joining me today. Our gospel reading for today comes from Matthew chapter 18 verses 1 to 9, and there is a lot going on in this passage. It all started because Peter, James, and John went up the mountain with Jesus, and the others did not. And an argument broke out as to who was greatest. Each of these men were seeking a position of prominence, power, or recognition. And as you might guess, the dispute made it to Jesus. In verse 1, the disciples came to Jesus and said, "Well, who then is greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" And Jesus shocked them by calling a little child to stand among them. And Jesus said, "Whoever humbles himself as this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." Now, Jesus wasn't talking about innocence or sweetness or even trust. Rather, Jesus was speaking of humility. Now, people don't typically count on a child to be the greatest because the child doesn't usually have that much responsibility. Think about what's going on in the church. Usually, a child won't plan a mission trip or preach a sermon or lead a Bible study or even balance the budget. The child is the lowest, and Jesus said, "You must become low like them." Well, in the beginning of the 18th chapter of Matthew, Jesus sets the bar for entrance into the kingdom quite high. We must change and become like little children. And I wonder, where do we need to change the most? Now that's something to reflect on for the rest of the week. The reality is that ours is a world of narcissists, where so many people are focused on themselves and their importance. So when Jesus points to a little child and says, "Be like them," it's actually countercultural. In order to enter the kingdom of heaven, we have to become like little children. We have to be childlike, not childish. So how can we be childlike without becoming childish in our ways? We do it by focusing on Jesus instead of listening to all of the voices out there clamoring for our attention. We can listen to the Spirit and let the Spirit guide us so that we can continue to follow Christ without pretense, ready to do and be all Jesus wants us to do and be in this world. This one thing for today is Jesus' admonition to the disciples and to us. Whoever becomes humble like a child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever becomes humble like a child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Humility is actually one of the essential characteristics as a Christian and one of the fruits of the Spirit. And humility is actually essential to joy. Well, why joy? Well, because joy requires open arms, an open heart, a curiosity about what is coming and what will be given, as opposed to what is accomplished and what we have to hold on to. To be childlike means to have the potential for dependence, not independence, exuberance, wonder, and awe. For those of you who are around children, you've seen firsthand the wonder and awe that they bring and their curiosity about everything. As a young mother, one of the things I was worried about was how my son would feel when his sister came home from the hospital. David was 3 years old and I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was honestly worried about giving David enough attention with a newborn baby in the house. Would he be jealous? Would he be frustrated when I need to feed the baby or change her diapers and wouldn't be able to attend to his needs? Okay, he was my firstborn and I didn't know any better. But when we brought Sarah home from the hospital, 3-year-old little David was very curious about her little nose and how can she breathe through such a little nose? Why does she sleep so much? And Mom, can she have some vanilla ice cream? 4 years later, when we brought Hannah home, I didn't have as many worries. You know what they say about the third child. Friends, this week, let's look into the eyes of a child and listen with awe. And let's ask God to help us to be childlike in our Christian walk. Friends, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you tomorrow.